It's 96 degrees outside. The fields shimmer under the summer sun. The gravel road radiates heat. Even the birds have gone quiet. Yet inside a farmhouse tucked deep in Pennsylvania Dutch country, a woman kneads bread beside an open window. No air conditioner, no ceiling fan, no compressor rattling in the background. In fact, there isn't even a power line connected to the property. And somehow the temperature inside remains nearly 20 degrees cooler than the world outside. Most people would call that impossible. Because we've been taught that comfort comes from machines, that beating the heat requires electricity, refrigerants, ducts, filters, and monthly utility bills. But what if generations of builders solved the problem long before any of those things existed? What if the secret wasn't a device at all, but a system hidden inside the design of the house itself? Today, we're uncovering one of the most effective passive cooling strategies still in use anywhere in America. A collection of simple ideas refined over centuries by people who had no choice but to understand how heat actually moves. Welcome back to NexReveal, where we uncover the practical knowledge modern life quietly forgot. Because the truth is, none of these techniques rely on tradition, religion, or folklore. They rely on physics. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which of these methods can lower temperatures inside your own home starting tonight, without spending $1. Most homeowners overlook the most powerful cooling source on their property. It's directly beneath their feet. Just 6 to 8 feet underground, the temperature remains surprisingly stable throughout the year. While surface temperatures swing from winter freezes to summer heat waves, the soil below barely notices. Across much of the United States, that underground temperature stays close to 50 to 55 degrees year-round. Early settlers used this fact to preserve food. The Amish took the concept much further. Instead of treating underground spaces as simple storage rooms, they turned them into part of the home's cooling system. A stone cellar built with breathable materials naturally collects cool air. Open a floor grate during the cool morning hours, and that dense air slowly rises into the living space above. Close the openings before midday, and much of that coolness remains trapped indoors for hours. The principle is remarkably simple. The ground becomes the air conditioner, and if your home already has a basement, you can borrow the same idea immediately. Pull cooler basement air upward during the morning, then isolate it before outdoor temperatures climb. No special equipment required? Drive through older Amish settlements, and another pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The houses all seem to face the same direction. That isn't coincidence. The longest walls often face south, protected by deep roof overhangs stretching several feet beyond the windows. During summer, when the sun sits high overhead, those overhangs cast a shadow across the glass. During winter, when the sun travels lower in the sky, sunlight slips underneath and warms the interior naturally. Today, architects call this passive solar design. The Amish simply called it common sense. Wraparound porches work the same way. They create a buffer zone of shaded air around the house, preventing outdoor heat from reaching the walls directly. Instead of drawing scorching air indoors, the home pulls in cooler shaded air first. Even a simple awning above a window can produce the same effect. Because the easiest heat to remove is the heat that never enters the house in the first place. The same logic extends to the landscape itself. Older farmsteads rarely place evergreen trees on the southern side of a house. Instead, they plant deciduous trees. Trees that grow thick leaves during summer, creating dense shade exactly when it's needed most. Then, every autumn, those leaves disappear. Winter sunlight returns. Free heating resumes. Modern energy studies continue to confirm what traditional builders understood intuitively. Strategically placed shade can dramatically reduce indoor temperatures before cooling systems ever become necessary. And while most people focus on what enters a house from outside, the Amish paid equal attention to the heat created inside. Think about your kitchen. Every oven, stovetop, and baking session releases enormous amounts of heat directly into the living space. That heat doesn't simply vanish. It becomes part of the indoor temperature. Many traditional households solved this by moving summer cooking outside the main structure entirely. Separate summer kitchens prevented baking heat from ever reaching bedrooms and living areas. Today, the same principle still works. Cook outdoors when possible. Use slow cookers. Bake early in the morning. Every degree you avoid creating is a degree you never need to remove later. Then there are the windows. Perhaps the most misunderstood cooling tool in the entire house. Most people open every window during a hot day and assume more airflow automatically means more cooling. Often, the opposite happens. Hot air naturally rises. Cool air settles lower. Older double-hung windows were designed specifically around this reality. Crack the upper sash during hot hours and accumulated heat escapes near the ceiling. Open lower windows only when outdoor temperatures become cooler than indoor temperatures. The house begins breathing on its own schedule, without fans, without electricity, simply by working with the movement of air instead of fighting it. And then there's thermal mass. One of the oldest building technologies ever developed. Stone walls, brick floors, and thick masonry absorb heat slowly. Hours can pass before that heat reaches the interior surface. By the time it does, outdoor temperatures have often begun falling again. Modern building science calls this thermal lag. Traditional builders simply understood that thick materials resist sudden temperature changes. Even today, exposed tile, brick surfaces, heavy curtains, and large water containers can help stabilize indoor temperatures by absorbing excess heat before it affects comfort. Finally, there's water itself, a cooling technology older than recorded history. Whenever water evaporates, it carries heat away. That's why sweat cools the human body. It's also why spring houses remained remarkably cool throughout the hottest months of the year. Place a shallow basin of water near a breezy window and moving air loses heat as moisture evaporates. The effect is strongest in dry climates, but the principle remains the same everywhere. And this is where most people misunderstand Amish cooling. There isn't one secret. There never was. The cellar, the shade, the trees, the windows, the thermal mass, the water. Each layer contributes a little. Together they create something powerful, a complete system. That's why many century-old farmhouses remain surprisingly comfortable, even during power outages that leave modern homes sweltering. The cooling doesn't depend on electricity. It depends on design, and that's a lesson anyone can apply. Pull cool air upward from a basement during the morning. Block sunlight before it reaches your glass. Avoid creating unnecessary heat indoors. Use your windows strategically. Add thermal mass where possible. Take advantage of evaporation when conditions allow. None of these changes are expensive. Most cost almost nothing. They simply require seeing a house differently. A farmer who plants a shade tree today knows he may never enjoy its full benefit himself. He plants it anyway, because real solutions aren't always designed for the next season. Sometimes they're designed for the next generation. And perhaps that's the deeper lesson hidden inside these old homes. Comfort doesn't always come from consuming more energy. Sometimes it comes from understanding the forces already surrounding us. The next time the power goes out on a blazing summer afternoon, ask yourself one question: how did people keep cool before the machine arrived? You may discover that the answer has been sitting quietly in plain sight all along.